To really understand this whole benefit costing, you've got to understand how benefits are calculated for these projects, right? And the good news is that projects, transport projects in the UK, are all appraised basically the same way. Okay. Now, when they get to the size of and complexity of HS2, it's a lot more complex, but fundamentally it's the same methodology. So how do we do it? Well, the way to think about it's like one of those, like those gâteaux, those multi-layered cakes. And you start with the base layer. Base layer is what underpins everything. User benefits of projects, and we calculate those using an economic theory called consumer surplus. And it's really easy. If I get something that I would have been prepared to pay 20 quid for, but I can actually get it for 15 quid, that 5 difference is consumer surplus. It's my surplus, right? Now, with transport projects, we flip that round a bit and say, if my journey currently takes me 30 minutes and we can invest in the railway and it take 20 minutes, that 10 minutes is my consumer surplus, and that's worth something to me. Okay, that has a value. And so over the years, the Department for Transport and their economists have developed tables, if you like, assessments for how much value time has. And it's different for whether it's business trips or leisure trips. It gets very complex, and people listening will just have to take our word for this, that the department, they put a lot of effort into this. These are approved models, they're peer reviewed, these are really, we have to just accept it, okay? But there is a way of valuing time. So with a project like HS2, massively complex demand model, lots of moving parts, interconnections, you can be guaranteed that the value of time calculation is very complicated, but they worked it out. And that's what underpins the project in terms of that layer 1. Layer 2 is then other well-established impacts that you can quantify, which are both user and non-user. So they might be changes to crowding, some noise benefits, reduction in accidents, air quality, that kind of stuff. Okay, all adds up. And that gives you your base. And as I say, every project would be done the same way. This is where it gets a bit more complicated when we get to the next layer. Value of time assumes that the market, the economy in the regions where you're running your project kind of works perfectly. And as a result of you doing your project, there isn't any kind of massive shift. Clearly with HS2, that's not the case. There will be some big changes that's kind of leveling up really, So what we look at is ways in which we can quantify additional benefits that will be transmitted to the local regional economies doing the project. And we call those wider economic benefits. And they kind of break into 2 parts. They're called static and dynamic. The static ones are where land use doesn't really change. I am simplifying this, but this kind of gives you the broad idea. Dynamic ones are where land use does change, okay? So dynamic wider economic benefits, the level 3, include higher foreign investment into the UK. So the UK becomes more attractive for investors because our transport's better around these important centres. What we call dynamic clustering. That's a fancy way of saying something very obvious, which is that businesses form clusters and they move around very well connected nodes. So they're kind of changes in land use. And then there's labour market changes, structural changes. And so workers will potentially move to a new location to get a job which is higher paid and better because the transport in and out of it is now better.